Good afternoon, beekeepers and bee enthusiasts. How you doing? It's another great day at the farm, and we are here at the Welcome Hive. The colony that lived here prior to the winter did not make it. We had basically multiple colonies in here from 2019 to 2022, or leading up to this season. So today we thought, since there's not a colony on the inside currently, let's bait up the hive and get it ready for swarm season and try to catch a swarm inside this hive. Now, we were inspired by Bee Lady Vicky last year to try catching colonies in hives, and in 2 of our hives we attempted to catch a colony, and both of those hives did catch a colony that's still, both are still alive today. So colonies, you can catch them right inside hives. Now, you know, we know that the optimal height to catch a swarm is probably about 10 to 15 feet in the air, but you really can catch them right off the ground. So we're going to bait this hive. Another thing we're going to be talking about today, of course, is the next natural beekeeping central commandment. So we thought what we would do is, as we're baiting this hive, we talk about that central commandment. It's kind of a smaller one, but the next episode of it is going to be really good. We're very excited about that. But anyway, we'll bait up the hive while we're talking about it, and basically tell you how to bait a hive, but also explain this next central commandment. We think it's going to be great. Should be some really good material. And yeah, let's break right into it. Now, while I'm talking, you might see a few scout bees flying around here checking stuff out. Earlier I saw a few scout bees going around the entrance. There's not a colony on the inside right now, but we think those are scouts that are checking out new locations. Our hydrangea hive is packed full of bees, and maybe we'll show that later on, but it has got so many bees on the face of it that we think they're going to be swarming before too long. So we're definitely seeing some scouts. Could be coming from them, could be coming from another colony, you never know. But in any case, let's break right into it. The first thing to baiting our hive we're going to be doing is putting the frames in along with our lemongrass essential oil, and yeah, that should be good to go. So first thing we do, there's many ways to use lemongrass essential oil, but we basically take a paper towel, we put it on the inside of a baggie, we poke a small hole in it, and the reason why we do that is it doesn't overpower the bees with too much lemongrass essential oil. You don't want to use too much lemongrass essential oil. If you're just a few drops or a spray bottle, if that's what you're going to do, but you don't want to overpower the bees, because if you do, then they're not going to move in. It's just too strong. It's a very strong smell. So we just put a little bit on this paper towel, put it on the inside of this baggie, close it up, poke a small hole, and we're going to lay it at the base of the hive, and then we're going to put the frames on. And that's about it. The only thing we're not really doing is we're not applying propolis, because some of these frames already have propolis on them. So we think that's adequate, but if you want to add some propolis to your hive, that's good to go. So I'm going to be working as I'm talking about this next central commandment. So if we take a look to page 100 of the new edition of Keeping Bees with a Smile, and this book is excellent. You've got to get this book if you want to keep bees naturally. It's by Federal Zoo and Herbert and by Dr. Leo Sharashkin. Excellent book. Highly recommend it. But if we go to page 100 of the newer edition, our next rule: allow bees to arrange their winter nest themselves. That is, don't rearrange it yourself during the fall. Now, what is Lazutin saying when he's talking about rearranging your bees? What does he mean by that? Well, Lazutin, he basically saw that a lot of traditional beekeepers were taking frames and rearranging them during the fall, you know, maybe mixing honey frames with other frames, brood frames, basically switching around frames on the inside of the hive throughout the year, maybe in the fall. And the thing is, and I'll go ahead and show you this since I'm putting this frame on the inside. This is kind of cool, but if you take a look right along the top here, you can see, and I'm sorry if I'm not centered, you can see that these are ventilation holes and also passageway holes. So the bees travel through these holes, but this allows circulation through the hive, right? These holes at the top and on the sides too. They don't fill the whole thing out with comb. They leave these little ventilation holes. And the reason why they do that is the brood on the inside of the hive has to be kept at just the right temperature, right? The brood has to be just the right temperature to grow. The production of honey requires just the right temperature on the inside of the hive. And they use those ventilation holes as ways to circulate air and temperature throughout the hive. And that's pretty crazy, but it is true. And so if we go, in the fall and switch around our frames and totally rearrange everything, then basically that might not be how they're prepared to regulate the temperature based off the way you're rearranging those frames, if that makes sense. So when it comes to that central commandment, we as again, I always say this, we do things naturally because we want to replicate how bees live in the wild, right? We want to replicate how bees live in the wild. And part of how they live in the wild is they live in a tree, and they don't have human beings going to them and changing how they live. They're not having people break into the hive and change their frames around. So, as natural beekeepers, we choose to replicate that rule because that's how they live in the wild. They don't have human beings come and rearrange their frames. They create frames in ways that circulate air and circulate temperature throughout the hive efficiently. And if you go rearranging everything multiple times during the season, that could have a problem. Now, I will say, in the spring, we do take 2 frames out of the brood area, or we take 2 honey frames out basically, and we do this to cycle frames out every year. So every year we're taking 2 frames out and we're adding 2 frames, and we do that in the spring. So it is a little bit of disturbance, but it allows us to refresh the frames on the inside. And we're not doing it in the fall, when they've got their preparations for winter and all that stuff. And that's what Lazutin says. He says the big one is rearranging during the fall. You don't want to do that. So that's about it as far as the central commandment goes. And that is about it as far as baiting this hive. So you saw how easy that was. I just took a hive. I put 7 frames on the inside. One thing I didn't mention earlier that is probably the most important part, if you can get some old comb in your hive, that is the best bait you can put in your hives. Old comb is good to go. We don't fill the whole thing out with old comb, but we'll put 2 frames of comb in there. And when swarms check it out, they're like, man, it's like free apartments in here. They really like it. So get you some old comb in there. We got 7 frames. We did put a little lemongrass essential oil on the inside. And yeah, that's about it. They're ready to go as soon as they move in. Should be good to go. So we hope you enjoyed that episode of the Natural Beekeeping Central Commandments, and we hope you enjoyed baiting a hive. Until next time, we'll see you soon.